As we gather today, we're reminded that Guelph is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples today. We acknowledge that we are situated on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples, specifically the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We are privileged to live, work, and create in this territory and must act with awareness and solidarity. We encourage you to educate yourself about the land that you occupy, wherever you're tuning in from, and you can find out this information at native-land.ca for a full map. And now I'm going to pass over to Luke.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thanks for everybody for tuning in today. So glad to have you joining us for this celebration of some wonderful books. I want to start off by reminding you that you can actually buy those books at gordonhillpress.com. You can check those things out, and also forthcoming books. You can have a look there. You can buy all the books from the season in one go too, as save yourself a few dollars. And I want to let people know that not tomorrow, but the Sunday following, on Sunday, November the 8th, we're going to be launching another one of our fall titles called Inappropriate, which is a collection of interviews with Canadian writers on the subject of literary appropriation. And it will have readings by Sanchari Sur, Mahak Jain, Wayne Grady, Farzana Doctor, Arif Anwar, Angie Abdu. So there will be a bunch of people you can go and check out there. And that's at 3:00 p.m. Eastern time on next Sunday. So you can find that stuff on our website too if you want to have a look. In terms of what the schedule is today, we're going to have people read, and then we're going to have a chance for you to give some questions. So please do think of some questions in advance if you have some stuff that you want to do. The first couple of minutes of question period are always the most awkward. So, points for the person who gets the first one out there, because then Shane doesn't have to write one anonymously, and that makes him happy, makes everyone else happy. So I'm going to let Shane do the first introduction.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Luke, nod your head if you can hear me. That worked. That's good. I'm introducing Khashayar, and it's a pleasure to do so because Khashayar is somebody who's been involved in the poetry community in Toronto for quite some time. And I first met him in the orbit of Knife Fork Book, showing up at readings at the old venue in the dance studio, and I heard him read from Dear Kestrel, his first chapbook from Kirby's Press, and I was blown away at that reading. He's also, in addition to being a poet and a kind of community supportive person, he's an essayist and reviewer, which is very close to my heart as well. And when I heard him read from Dear Kestrel, I knew that I really wanted to publish his debut book. And so, me being me, the first thought in my head, I popped right up to him and said, I want to publish the first book. And it worked out. So it's going to come out next year in the spring. So please, everyone, enjoy Khashayar reading from what will be Me, You, Then Snow, or whatever he wants to do. I'm excited.
Hello. First of all, we're all loving your energy, Shane. Sun all of a sudden got really intense, but yeah, it's really nice to be here. It's really nice to see a lot of great friends and everyone in the chats just going crazy. It's a big I gotta admit, it's a big pickup for the day. And first of all, thank you to Shane for taking a heap of poems that I sent him and making it to a book. And I'm just loving the jokes in the chat right now. But also thank you to Luke first of all for being for being my publisher, but other than that, for I told Luke about my Luke said, what do you want for your cover, and I said, I will kill for anything turquoise. And he made sure to like make it the perfect turquoise cover, and I love it so much. So anyway, I'm gonna read from my book. Oh, also, great. I am absolutely honored to be on the Gordon Hill roster. They have they have produced so much amazing work, and they have anything for everyone. I highly recommend you to just get a bundle. I'm quite sure you will find something in your bundle that you would love. There are essays, there's everything. I am absolutely honored to be on the roster, and it's great to read with Lily and Travis. So I'm gonna go. So I'm just gonna start reading. Dear Kestrel, you dust the evening sun off your shoulders and ball up on your mattress aching. Another one of those days. It's been another one of those days every day for months. Passers-by may lack compassion, but a hot meal never lies. You're aching, and while aching, you promise you'll be beautiful forever. It's their eyes, Kez, that glance that makes you feel unattractive, fetishized, othered. You avoid eyes by dancing in solitude. Do you ever feel the weight of your lips, Kez, heavy with withheld proclamations? You spent spring strolling through cemeteries, searching for the odd cherub to cool your cheek against. And when your lovers leave, you can't stand the silence of goodbye. It's the banality of goodbye. It's the static of Sunday gently scratching your soul. And on the subway ride home, comedy happens to you. You feel the crowd pulsating to the caress of fading witticisms. Anger inspires ecstatic laughter, unintentional, induced, applauded, reproduced. Comedy happens to you, Kez. Laughter, the medicine, the fraternal, the eternal. This next poem is my absolute favorite poem title. It's called Nipples al dente. Scars seem to say the end's a dreadful thought. In the cross-legged hours to come, be more masculine. Bite marks embolden, heavy as lips. Bus ride boredom taught us how to forget the word longing. How to say I and really mean it this time. How to bite anti-Oedipal, complex-free. We paved a new path to the mind, found a maternal love protruding. My skin came alive. A fingertip could stretch me tender, etch a lover's mark on hips. Chest risen, exercised, a warmth permeates. We're longing free. My book has a lot of film poems, and this is my favorite film poem about one of my favorite films. It's called Tarkovsky's Mirror, and it's dedicated to Claudia Edwards. Come throes of a cock, death throes of a bird, trapped in a fist. And the skin that sheathes our soul opaque. A dried leaf in the pages of history, blighted, once green. This is a love poem for Vancouver. This stillness, logs lined up on the beach. The more I say, the more I take from this city. Listen, the rhythm of the waves. I froth at the mouth, imitating the ocean. Where I don't belong is full of waiting, hours spent hitching rides on strangers' lashes. Open my mouth, my tongue turns to sand. Open my eyes, my feet turns to stone. Okay. This next one is called Pornhub Gay. The bodies I attract. The bodies I'm attracted to, curves and sinews, muscle symmetry, epidermal glimmer, no body without warmth, no touch void of electricity. The most oppressed bodies are the most pornographically desired. The most oppressed bodies are the most pornographically endowed. The most suppressed desires of the most oppressed bodies. Desire infinitely flexible, bending sex words, and the oppressed are the most lusciously bodied, aggressively membered and dismembered, disembodied and remembered in taglines. An old limp dick hooded with smegma, liver spotted and sour stench, the kind that hits you like a fine wine, unfolds, while cultures fuck each other into self-consuming wormholes. Oh, actually, I just realized this next poem was written in Vanessa's workshop. So here's a shout out to Vanessa. It's called The Pencil Sharpener for Simon Wilner. Wood chips in the basin. The dog swallowed a piece and pierced his stomach. Winter's knocking on the workshop door. A storm's brewing, and the earth and I've got a minute till our embrace becomes fatal. Wood chips in the basin. The dogs swallowed a piece and pierced his stomach. It wouldn't be a reading without a poem for my partner. This is a poem dedicated to my partner, Therese Mason-Pierre, and it's called This Poem Wears Your Clothes, Sleeps in Your Bed, but is not in fact you. Kissed under the throbbing veins of this city for once living out loud. Surrounded by bronchial hues of capitalism, our bodies entwined into a slip knot, tears shed over fulfilled wishes. Ride or die, astrology made witness. A wishbone cracks and I don't dare look. Out of concrete we surface, afternoon sun cradling your natural geometry, Venus infer nostalgia. Bearing scars, you ask me, do lilacs yearn for their root family? Purple white ink in earth. And with a glass of wine, I paint you onto the neighbor's garage sale sign. You're unraveling, holding you, I unlearn object permanence. Sleep in front of the mirror. Wash my face for you. Down the drain it goes. So when I handed in my first draft of the book, there was a poem in there called The Farewell, which I wrote for my grandfather while he was on his deathbed. Well, fortunately or unfortunately, he ended up living for another 9 months, and may he rest in peace. When he died, I added a second poem called The Farewell Part 2, which is the one that I'm reading right now, after his death. Sorry, I'm really sorry, but the sun is actually warming my phone to a point that it's about to shut down, so I have to move. I didn't think I would have to do this, so I'm sorry, but this is, okay, I actually have a screen here so I can be just purple. The Farewell Part 2 for Khashayar Mohammadi. A blanket of morning thoughts and snowlight, white on white. News comes at the death and I do nothing but think of filling the fruit bowl for visitors. A city widowed in the bones of winter. I don't remember boarding the bus, but it's filled with bouquets of flowers and the boredom of all those holding them. News comes of the death, and I find a new room in my house, new bookshelf, new wallpaper. Was red always this red? News comes of the death, and there's sand on the streetcar again. Where does it all come from? Ash to ash, dust to dust, my thoughts caught in a gray sludge. News comes of the death, and I find a new corner in the room. With teeth, I've absorbed new vision. With death, I've absorbed new vision. News comes of the death, and I sit silently, wait for the visitors to arrive. Sorry, I have to put this down to change my... This is pretty funny. I didn't think this would happen, but... And this is the poem that ends the book. It's a part of the three-part... it's the last part of a three-part long poem called Circumnavigating Heaven in Three Geographies, and this geography is called Lakeshore, and it's dedicated to Kirby. My head weighing down my limp body, fingertips searching body parts, I name them with eyes closed. Nose, cheek, lip, one by one, I earn body parts, speak to some for the first time. Words embody, and I listen pen in hand, list myself limb by limb. Leg, foot, gentle swell of breast, larger than most. In winter, the hardest feat is to stand, a body limp from gravity. Hand, leg, mouth, words are arbitrary, but we still use them wrong. It's dangerous when words stop at sharing. It's dangerous when words don't inform, and my true form shaped by words, my true figure informed by shapes. My true shape figured out and figured in, formed into a firm corpus where thoughts flow body in, life flows body out. Bodies elocute louder than words, and we never listen. To limbs who break up, pursue solo careers and expression, while heads sit atop bodies, limp and flaccid. If my skin lies about me, then what of the nights when all is sour but touch? It's dangerous when words stop at catharsis and I'm left there on the bed asking for a slap to heat up the skin so I can surface to my heaven. And one small poem to end. Dear Kestrel, holding you, I'm prosthetic. Holding you, I'm the loneliest me. I'll be in the frozen food aisle. Let's rendezvous on the other side. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Kramer. Enjoyed that very much. Looking forward to that book coming out, and you can pre-order that. The link is in the chat, and I'll turn it over to Shane to introduce Lily.
Yeah. Good work, Kramer. I have Lily's book, Shining Through the Photons. It's a beautiful book, if I don't say so, myself. And how Lily came to Gordon Hill Press, or how we came to her, I think, was similar to a previous author that we have, I think, tuning in today. Previously published Amy LeBlanc. Amy published a chapbook with Anstruther Press, and of course, I read all those, everyone, and I thought, well, that was a good one, and a particularly good one, and I got that submission in my email inbox, and I was thrilled because to get unsolicited submissions of that kind of caliber is something that I really want this press to achieve. I can beat the bushes for good work for sure, but to know that it's coming in as well makes me know that we're headed in the right direction. Well, Lily was someone who was similar, published a chapbook with Anstruther Press and submitted to the press as well. And when I received that, I knew almost instantly, after reading in a few pages, that it was fantastic work. So a little bit more formal introduction. we'll proceed. But, you know, I like kind of telling you how I know these books and how I know these people, how they kind of come to me in the poetry world, as opposed to this person got a prize and goes to this school. Ugh, you know. Anyway, Lily is the founder of Half a Grapefruit magazine. She's doing a Master of Arts in Creative Writing at the University of Toronto. And her chapbook that I mentioned with Anstruther Press, I don't know if there's any copies left. Maybe Aaron Tucker can tell us in the chat. It was called Every One of Your Dreams Is You. Lee, what entranced me about her book is that she has this innocence and wisdom paradox happening throughout her writing. You'll sense that probably when you hear it. It seems deceptively innocent, the writing, but it's just heartbreakingly sad, constitutively. Yet, you know, taking joy in life. It's the kind of writing I love. And she also, not surprisingly, does that in hybrid forms, crossing, you know, different senses all the time. So with my ramble over, I can't wait to listen to Lily. And before I completely hand over the microphone, I just want to say, before Luke introduces Travis, you're all in for a special treat. Legend's going to read after Lily. Okay, thanks.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My screen froze for a second. I have to thank Jim Johnston from Anstruther Press for directing me to Gordon Hill Press. It's so lovely to work with Shane and Jeremy Luke, and also, you know, to have friends like Vanessa and Kramer on the same team and family. Hi, everyone. Okay, before I say any more, I opened my glasses case and my glasses were not inside, so I can't fully see what's going on. And if from time to time I need to like get really close to the screen, it's because I'm trying to be a part of your chat. Okay, I do have a little costume today, so I'm gonna put that on. I could only find one glove. Okay, it's not fitting right on my head. But I'm a frog. This is my costume. Thank you. Okay. So let's begin the reading. Thank you again, Shane, for such a generous introduction. The first poem I'm going to read is called Cross Country. And I want to start with this poem today because I can't take myself very seriously with this on. It's very cold out today and it's very bright. I wrote this poem on a very cold, bright day. Cross country. Who can sleep? The sun makes the ice look a certain gold. Someone made a circle over the water. I wonder what they saw. Another world beneath this one? Water tundra, snow tundra. Ice so bright under my eyelids. So sharp a morning, and it's only Friday. The train sings. I had thought I missed the good things. I had thought they weren't for me. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the poems I read because they're so short. And I wrote this poem on the via train from Winnipeg to Toronto. It took maybe a day, maybe 2 days. It was very crampy and cold. One of those trains where a murder could happen and then you'd have to solve it. And I wrote this poem. It was sort of scraps on my phone. A lot of poems in here happen like that, where I would be on the GO train, where another form of transit, just scribbling in my iPhone or my journal. And they are very simple in that way, where they kind of just, you look out the window and the ice is gold, and then you write, you know, I look down the window, out the window, and the ice is gold. So it feels very wild to be promoting this book, looking like a frog, to be promoting this book, because I have poems in here that I wrote so long ago when I was 18, 19, and then poems I wrote more recently, month before the book came out. And in that sense, I didn't write this book with a theme in mind. I didn't write it because, I wanted to make a Saturn Peach book and have it out there for you. I am always writing. I'm a fiction writer. So in terms of projects, I'm working on a novel. Poetry always has felt more present and more of a community for me, where because my poems are so short, I can just write something and send it to a friend, and that's a conversation. And through conversing, I've met so many wonderful people and made so many friends. And I have to thank you all for that. It's such a lovely, lovely community. So all of the poems in this book I wrote in my undergrad. And at the time I was reading, and even now I'm always thinking about Auerbach's mimesis, the representation of reality in Western literature. So reading Auerbach and constantly thinking about doors and openings and representation, responsibility of being a writer and a critic. And one of my favorite writers is Raymond Carver, right? I can't really relate to the whole being, smoking cigs, drinking drinks, and going on double dates. But the way that he writes, the way that his writing is so open and welcoming and gentle, how you get to the end of the story, and the only thing that happens is people sit down on a couch. But that alone is so moving and so realistic. He has this, whenever I see the image in poetry where stories where someone stands in a pool of refrigerator water because the fridge is leaking, that's just such a Carver image where, of course the fridge is leaking. Of course they're poor and their fridge is leaking and they're just standing in the fridge water. And thinking about all of that and how to write like that, I decided to, write poems that were very vague and general in a way. Not, obviously, no one ever wants to be cliche, but in a way that I can be very personal and just be speaking to a friend, but also open so that anyone can read it and put their own meanings into it or understandings into it. In a very, very non-pretentious, bland way. And, if it was up to me, it would all be prose poems. Okay. So I didn't pick out for the last week, I have not been able to speak. So I didn't pick out specific poems to read today. I thought it would be exciting for mostly only me to flip to a random page and read whatever comes up. Here goes. Okay, this poem is called Your Right Eye is Lazy, the Left Eye Does All the Work. This is what I was talking about earlier because I don't have my glasses. I have a lazy eye and, an eye that carries. My foot made an imprint on the carpet that looked like 3 distinct animals. In the order they appeared, although having been there all along, a tiger, a scorpion, and a leopard. I won't describe their orientation to you. The scorpion head stretches. Coughing sounds from the room down the hall. Everywhere is carpet, but the padding is wearing out. You would need to strip the whole house down to dust. Growing up, I was afraid to play with marbles, afraid to swallow them. My own hands can betray me. Awake in my stranger's head. Whose voice is calling me to dinner, and will I go? Will I go together? I guess I decided to title this poem some weird thing my eye doctor said to me because it has the same effect or mood of having a lazy eye. When you have bad eyesight, it's, well, for me at least, it's so easy to get headaches where I zone out of things and I can't pay attention, or I see things that aren't there. Or maybe it's lack of sleep and too many video games, probably a combination of all of that. So when I write, I try to use that in a very tricky, cheating way where you can play with abstracts to not have to write in a linear, progressive way, because I don't think that's, well, time isn't linear. Although I say this, but I'm always scared of time passing anyway. Okay. I'm not flipping and picking a poem, it's just hard with my gloved hand. Okay, oh, I really like this poem. It's called Plain Water, and which is, of course, a gesture, admiration for Anne Carson. Like blue olives from the sky, these round shapes that come a prattle on the night. You text me about the rain from the floor of your truck, your radio tic-tacking the whole drive home. My vocal cords swell, this night like round things inside me. I had no idea. Something about this poem is I workshopped it. I didn't take any feedback that my workshop gave me. Somebody said, olives aren't blue. I know that. Okay, a scary poem for Halloween. It's called The Christian Cycle, Redemption, etc. Now this one is very about Auerbach, or Auerbach's readings. Let Eve kill herself. Naked and cowering, she wants to die for you. She wants to be her own. She is just a child and her hand is sin. No one else can pluck that fruit. No one can speak to Adam, and now no one can speak to you. Let Eve kill herself, or what of her daughters? Daughters aligned like beads on a horizontal plane, hearts skewered on that vertical axis of your judgment. What cycle? Let there be what? Auerbach is really fun to read because you'll read one chapter about, you know, some fictional guy who doesn't want to go to like this gladiator ring, and then by the end of the chapter, you know, the conclusion is, well, the Roman Empire fell because Ammianus couldn't write sentences. Was that 10 minutes? I can't see. Should I read one more? Okay, I'll read this one. It's called There Came a Great Buzz. At the beginning of all my little sections, there's a peach. What if you are full of mosquitoes? What if a mosquito goes to suck your blood and she sucks and sucks and another mosquito comes out and your mosquito says, oh, that's where you've been. And the other mosquito says, there's nothing for you here. What can the bear do with the honeycomb? What if you put your ear to a seashell and it drowns you? I say, why can't it end with the wave? Why not? The lake is a great image. Under fog and gray light, some end. When the sun set, water covered my pupils. Because we were by the shore, everything condensed. Behind my back, there was a cackling, a fire. And one by one, the mosquitoes flew out of me. There came a great crash. What if you were there? What if you knew? What if you were just like me? Could we open ourselves, maybe in the dark of a cave? Could you find a cave with your GPS? I am ashamed and my pain tolerance is not that high. Could a cave conceal my echo? It is dark in my stomach and there's no room to stretch my legs. Here's what happens when you listen to the buzz in you. Can you hear it? The rain outside. A question I got was if there was a meaning behind the animals that reoccur. In my first year of doing my MA, I focused a lot on Kierkegaard's repetition. That has nothing to do with this book, but currently in my life, and I suppose always, I am always repeating things. Maybe not consciously, but always consciously. Just like how everyone in your dream is you, or is it? I believe that less now, the more I, do tarot readings. Okay, so mosquitoes because mosquitoes are just everywhere, especially in the summer. Or you try to go stargazing and then you can't even do that because there are mosquitoes everywhere. Or images like scorpion, having a scorpion in the center of solution. I like using those things because they are everywhere and they are cliche, but there's always a reason for that. I'm TAing for first year creative writers, and every line I say, you know, this is cliche. We should try to come up with something more unique, or if you're going to use a cliche, you have to be very sure about it. But then I use cliches all the time, right? It's like I don't try very hard when I want to write a beautiful thing. I just say tree, or, you know, I'm sad. I just look at the lake. It's very simple. We all feel these same movements and emotions. And that's, I think, what poetry is and how it helps us connect so well with each other. So those are my poems, and this is my costume. I hope you enjoyed.
Thank you very much, Lily. I personally love the costume. I was the one who suggested that we do that, and then I didn't. So I kind of feel bad. I'm letting you down. Vanessa posted the link for Lily's book in the chat as well, so you can go and follow that up there. And I have the great privilege of introducing our last reader for today, Travis Lane. In the poetry world at this point in Canada, Travis needs no introduction at all, but I'm going to do it anyway. And in keeping with Shane's decision to do something a little more personal, the personal bit for me with Travis is that I've known about her and read her so much, and then today was the first day I ever got to see her in real virtual life. And so it's not just a sense of being able to introduce her, but also introducing myself to her, and that's a really amazing thing. This is one of the things that the poetry does, is brings people together in those odd ways, and it's kind of cool for me to see these young authors kind of taking the next step from the established authors like Travis, who have laid that foundation in Can Lit. So I'll give you a little bit of a more formal introduction to Travis. Is one of Canada's most distinguished writers. She lives in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and she has published almost 24 books, including 2 prose and 19 books of poetry. She has received numerous awards for her writing, including the Pat Lowther Memorial Award, the Alden Nolan Award for Excellence in Literary Arts, the Lieutenant Governor's Award for High Achievement in Literary Arts, and she was shortlisted for the Governor General's Award for Poetry in 2015. So she's one of the greats, and we're glad to have her along here today to read to us, and I hope that you enjoy. Travis, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me? Good. I really am grateful not only for this lovely book, but for the opportunity of hearing both Kramer and Lily. That was a lot of fun to listen to. Really enjoyed it. Now I'm going to begin with the opening poem in my book, which reflects the cover. The Young Bobcat. A young bobcat leaned on the door of the old age home. A native wood note, not yet wild. Don't let it in. Look at the yard. The trees are cut. The grass is not original. There might be ants, domestic, small. Now that the world's so simplified, we have to invent the darkness, the wilderness we do not have. And yet the shadows of our dreams from an alternative universe to which we do not want to go affirm the limitations of our sight. Perhaps we should take a photograph. Live in HD. The smell of rancid butter, slightly scorched, drenches the crowded atrium. Outside, the snow falls on the parking lot, a trifle dreary, but mystical in the softened neon of afternoon. The mall is crowded, sleazy, warm, a prototype for paradise, almost, friendly, comfortable. But that semi-forest across the street seems nearer to a paradise I could imagine. Beautiful. But I can't stroll among those winter blistered trees, the candled tufts of withered weeds skimming the thin iced pond. Here I can wait for the opera, warm, friendly, safe. The video game is still audible, and the smell of rancid butter, slightly scorched. The north is receding. The north is receding. A tropic wind preceding a dead tropic eye has been thrashing the aspen, the browning pines. But now the wind's pulled in its claws, basks on our hot garden, pulls the humid foreign air across us, and the heat prickles our skin, a tropic rash that leaves no scars except below our sleep-starved eyes. All night the highway mutters, sirens scream, lights from the street flash over us, a muted glare. We must have slept. Perhaps we dreamed of the saline rust of oceans or the deserts that we humans make. No trees, no grass, no water. But as beautiful as this night's moon, which has no air. The path to nowhere. The tree that held the world up lost its grasp. The stars that sifted through its twigs, no longer tuned, jangle and fade. One song perhaps reknits it, tango or nest, like the string hand games that children play, a lover's knot redone, redoing, yes. But pull a thread, music turns into a parking lot, alder and swamp and the heavy moss dissolving under the streetlight's drench, becoming the path to nowhere, which we must not take. For Ruth, days cluster, days clutter, they open, shut, heap on the bed like feather quilts. I can nest in them, pulling the good cloth over me, letting the old cat lick my thighs, which is all I have left. Though sometimes nights I feel beside me my husband's weight, as if his earplug radio had lulled him to sleep with its baseball games. So like the old cat's rasping purr I had grown fond of, or used to. What day is it now? I have lost track. My notebooks by the bed have grown stale, dusty. I know it's night, but that's okay. It's not right now that I need to know. Someone will tell me what I can't be bothered remembering. Though remember is what I do. Homesick for what? Homesick for what? The old dog's dead. The meadows turned into a trailer park. Those dark, wire-tufted blackberries he nibbled on, and the heavy grass where he'd settle down waiting for us to be ready to go, as if road pebbles hurt his paws. His asphalt, convenience, snacks, and toys. Better a map that is out of date than these new ones which show only the places we've never been, blotting the ones we know. Onward and upward. Up is hard. Like an old-fashioned ski toe, I hold on, the rope skids through my mittens. I'm still here. It hurts a little less each time to grab, to clutch, and then let go. I've gained an inch. Mark that in snow. Watching TV with Davy. Cat, Davy, and I were watching TV, hoping they'd show us something else on Baffin, not just the cold gray sea and empty shores, silent except for the narrator. We watched the colored lichen, moss growing on stones against which moved, and we sat up. Two tiny beasts, orange, avid, furred. As if in a blasted universe, these still encrypted moths burrowed, mundane and unimportant, just like us, embedded in the sofa. The soul does have its wakenings, its caterpillar springs. The fall of light. The fall of light, the shadows that as day progresses twist and change, faint, feline, elusive. Is this enough? Two wax wings in the backyard crab, glitter of phone lines, rainbow iced. Take it easy, I'm told. Easy it is, the breath that I have to stop to catch. And the fall of light is beautiful. Counting neighbors. 3 in the morning they started up, shrill, operatic. There must be more than one, such theater. I've only seen them twice, both times as solitary trundlers, haunches high, head down at dusk along the back fence, going home next door below their shed or back from mine. Also the silent snuffler, peacock-tailed, a fountain of black white I've seen at dawn. I find its grub holes in my lawn, saves the expense of pesticide. The cats don't mind. With coons or skunks, they keep a truce. With squirrels, however, it's different. The small red one who runs along the fence, almost always alone. The gray squirrels who remade their nest that fell down from in the windstorm, and the chipmunks, the conciergerie who sit on my front doorstep as if I were less important than a leaf. And chickadees, sparrows, and always crows, those colonies that winter times hang in loose crowds like swarming bees. Pigeons, of course, and the hummingbird I never see till summer, late. Robins in fair quantity, finches, grosbeaks, once even briefly a sparrowhawk. Out front the students wander past. Should I count them? Should I count the gnats, the spiders, bees? And you, if you come to visit me, may I count you? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Travis. That was really lovely. Hopefully we will have a chance, all things COVID considered, to come out and visit you sometime. So we're going to do a few questions now. And feel free to keep those questions coming if you like. You can message me directly if you know how to do that. There's a little drop-down box that says everyone in your chat, and you click the little down button, and my name will be there somewhere. Just send that to me. So the first question we have is for Lily. And the question is, you have a lot of different shape to your poems, a lot of different form. At what point do you know what form or shape that the poem is going to take? Is that something that you kind of decide ahead of time, or is that something that you feel like comes through revision, or how does that work for you in your process?
Most of the time for poems, because I write with so much, I guess, unknowing, so much of my poems begin with my own questions or feelings. The form always is, the form and the content is so intrinsic that it just writes, you know, if a line needs to be broken, it just the feeling is there. But also, as with writing fiction, sometimes it takes a while of editing and changing it for things to feel right. At the end of the day, for me, the editing process is all about how I feel about the piece at the end. But say you're writing a short story and you write it in first person, but then you go back and you try the same story in third person and you find that it works better. There's a lot of that work too. So it's never, you know, a poem comes out as it is, or I know this is going to be the form for it. There's also a lot of conversation with other editors or during workshop where people tell you, oh, I think that you would convey this feeling better if it was a prose poem or if it was less wordy.
Thanks very much for that, Lily. The next question is for Travis. So, what do you feel have been the biggest changes in poetry in Canada since you first started writing? What kinds of things do you feel have shifted over the years? You know, with 20 books plus under your belt.
Well, I don't know how to answer that. I do think when I first came, I had not read much Canadian poetry, and I went down to the UNB library and started saying, I'm going to read all Canadian poetry, and I couldn't. And then I thought, well, I'll just read Canadian poetry by women, and I discovered I couldn't. So I really haven't read all that much. There has been a change. I think there's a little less domestic stuff and more. We're hearing different voices, the Indigenous people, the non-cisgendered people, people from all over the world and with different problems, and it's a much greater variety. But I think there was more formal experiment when we had less to say.
So there's also a question for all three of you. And since I've already got Travis up here, how about I'll pass it on to you first, and then I'll let other people take it on. Well, actually, something's just come in. I might as well do this first because it's also for Travis. Someone's asked whether Travis would say a few words about what she discovered in her recent work that surprised her and how you responded to that surprise.
I don't think I've been surprised.
You remain unsurprised.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
She's 86, remember.
I've been around.
So to start off with a question that's for all three of you, how do you feel like the this new COVID world where you're having to interact with people with Zoom, how does that affect you? Is that affecting your writing, being cut off from other people, not be able to, go to readings and whatnot? What's the effect of that on your writing practice?
Does someone want to speak first?
I can start if. What I want to say is personally, I in no way want to undermine the conditions that we're in. I myself have lost family over COVID, but in terms of the government money that I received while being at home, I realized this is the life of a writer that I wanted to have for years and years, and it's again, I am not in any way undermining what we're going through, but to be paid a certain stipend to be home and writing, I'm just more talking about UBI and the fact that there's a possibility for people with disabilities who are getting a quarter or a third of what people are getting right now, and at the same time realizing looking at my family in Iran, looking at my friends and family in the US and the UK and Africa, and I personally think with all the problems that we've had, it's wonderful to have some government backing here to spend some time writing. But again, this is something that doesn't exist my family in Iran are having a lot of trouble. My family in the US are having a lot of trouble. But as a person in Canada right now, this has been a welcome, the government money has been a welcome part of creating writing.
Well, I can say that it's definitely, I have so many friends who are also launching books during the pandemic, and it's very tough because you don't get to invite all your friends and go to a bar. Don't get to do book tours. Most of the people I spoke to who launch books, they told me that they didn't order their own copies to sell because there'd be no book tours. And I didn't even think about that. I just got so excited that I ordered a box. And it is really tough to try to get books to people in a safe way, trying to promote your own book during this time. And so that's different. It's not like, oh, it's impossible, it's so much work, right? We've all worked together and moved online, and it also makes you think about differences and also accessibility and all of that, and just to be more of that in general. So there are pros and cons. I'm more reflective of the things that I desire in terms of book launches or readings or just being a host. So that has, right, my opinion with online readings is I always dread them more because they're just, where I, sit around and play games all day, and I don't want to stop doing that. And I'm like, oh, I have to do a reading now. But once, you get into it, it's so easy. And then you have friends from around the world who can join now. And so, right, that's really cool.
Travis, did you have something to add to that? How has the Zoom world changed your writing practice?
Well, I haven't done much with the Zoom world, but the thing is, my writing practice is the practice of a very old woman who is avoiding practically everything because I don't want to get sick. And all my friends, most of them are a little younger than me, but not by much. And so we don't see each other quite as often. It's much less sociable. We sort of wave at a distance, and occasionally we have distant tea parties, me and my donut here and you and your donut there, but not all that often. It's much less social, so I miss the sociability.
Right. So a question for Lily, and actually I'm going to start with my own question for Lily. You've mentioned games a few times. What are you playing right now?
Okay, very embarrassing answer. I'm playing Broforce. It's on sale on Steam for $4.24 Canadian dollars. I know that it was free before on the PS4, but I'm just getting into it. It's very chaotic, lots of shooting, all war propaganda, and it's fantastic.
Okay, perfect. One of the question that has been directed to you is whether working as a TA on a creative writing course has changed how you think about your own writing and editing and your own workshopping experience.
Not to roast my students, but so I'm teaching a very, very large creative writing course, so that just that alone doesn't really work. There's over 100 students in that course. I have like 50 students to TA for, and because it's an introductory course, there are students who are very, passionate about writing and there to help each other, and there are students there who just like mess around. Every story ends with a car crash, and so it's tough to balance that. And if I was a professor, I would get away with just being mean, but as the TA, I have to be polite and always be helpful, even though the students are clearly just, they think that creative writing is just an easy grade. But so that makes me miss my own workshop more, which I guess is responding to the earlier question, right? I do miss sitting down with a group of writers and workshopping writing. That was so helpful, and now I get that less. I don't really do a lot of Zoom workshop. My connection isn't always steady, and also if a Zoom workshop is going on, I just go make a sandwich. Working with so teaching isn't really, it hasn't changed that much. I guess it does make you reflect more about when you're giving feedback to somebody. It's not about, oh, I don't like it, or I don't like it, or I don't like it, or I like it, or this is bad, but more about to see what your students are trying to write, and then how you can help them convey that better. So even if somebody wants to write a very cliche story that ends with a car crash, you help them make that car crash realistic.
A question for all three of you. I'll start off with Kramer here. So which Canadian author would you say has influenced you most, or which one do you look up to the most? We were talking about G.K. Chesterton earlier, but I don't think he qualifies as Canadian.
Well, she is in my both. I hope she's still here, and she is also in my acknowledgements, and that's that reading Clara Duplessis has really changed the way I write, and I hope she's still here, and she has really influenced the way I read, the way I write, the way I speak about arts and engage with arts, and she has changed my entire outlook on linguistic writing, which is the last part of my book, but also like another person who inspires me a lot but has not directly inspired my writing, and is perhaps I can argue is my favorite poet at the moment, and I'm gonna say she is everything that Paul Celan wanted to be, which is Nicole Brossard. I will stand by it. Nicole Brossard is probably one of the greatest poets that has ever lived. And in terms of Canadian, I read a lot of Canadian writing, and I try my best to stay within Canadian writing. But the book that has the Canadian writer that has inspired me the most recently, like a most recent book, would be Kinesia Lubrin's Dysgraphis.
Thank you. Travis, how would you answer that question? Is there a poet or a Canadian writer that you have found most influential?
There are so many, and I get influenced by every breeze that blows. And I'm also terrified that somebody I deeply love, I will suddenly forget the name. When you're 86, you will occasionally forget the name of your best friend and your wife and your dog for a few minutes at any rate. So I'm not answering any question of that sort.
Okay, done. Lily, how would you answer that question? Lily?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. So who would you say is the most influential Canadian writer for you?
I mentioned her earlier in my reading, but definitely Anne Carson, especially her work with psychoanalysis in her poetry, just mind-blowing. It's so beautiful. And also, friends who are writing now. A lot of people in this Zoom right now. It's always a lot of unpublished friends too. It's so inspiring and incredible just to see what people who are around you who are alive doing right now.
And that ties into a question that has come in for Kramer. The question is, you've dedicated a lot of the poems in your collection to other people. How is that kind of community important to your writing practice?
Well, I think we will all, like the same way that you said, well, how does you were asking a question to a couple questions ago. You said like, how does COVID affect the way that you interacted with people, and like how does that influence your writing practice? Well, I'm not gonna say it has made it any worse or any better, but I'm gonna say that a lot of the basis of my writing comes from, I would say a lot of my strongest writing comes from very distinct conversations that I've had with great friends, and they don't always have to be poet friends. Like, for example, my favorite, like I would say one of my absolute favorite poems in the book is dedicated to my friend Claudia, and they are not a poet at all, but sometimes these discussions just help bring out such philosophical, they just help you question certain things that you have thought all your life, and that always brings out a lot of emotions in my poetry. And I love writing poems for people. I love writing poems dedicated to people, inspired by people, responding to people. And this is something that I've always, and I think you're right. I think like a third, or at least a third of my poems are dedicated or written for other people.
Mm-hmm. So that's all the question I've got in now. So text now, forever hold your peace. But I think that we can now turn things over to Vanessa, and she's going to close us out. Thanks very much for joining us. I've really enjoyed myself. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves as well. Take it away, Vanessa.
Hello. So thank you, Luke and Shane, for all your introductions. And yeah, it's always so kind hearing you guys introduce people. Thank you to Lily and to Travis and to Kramer for reading. All of the books that were read today are available on the website. They've been linked in the chat. Ebooks and physical books are both available for these titles. And they're also, you can get them separate or as a bundle. Thank you for all joining us today, everyone, and for your comments and for all your questions. We love the chat. We love to use the chat. We love participation. So thank you for everyone participating. I mentioned at the beginning is the next launch for Inappropriate, which is the third fall title. It'll be next Sunday, November 9th at 3:00. And that I can link in the chat as well. It is an edited collection here. It's a collection of interviews with Canadian authors on how they work through questions of difference. And it'll be a Q&A again with the audience readings, with the audience, and then readings from the book as well. So yeah, that's everything. Thank you again to everyone who participated and everyone who came to support the writers. It's really important, especially because we can't meet in a physical space. So it's still special and that we can interact in these ways. So thank you. And that's it. Goodbye.
Show us participants or not.